In the previous video, we saw that if we searched signaling pathway using wildcards to include single L and double L, and pathway and pathways, we got a lot of data to suggest that the NF-KB signaling pathway is talked about a lot. But when we have this much data, it might be better just to do a search on cluster. So let's click the cluster tab right here and see what we get. So the default size has you just on cluster size 2. So I guess it saved the search term for us. So I suppose we can just push start and see what happens. So I don't know if that's interesting or not to me, but it shows us now the data of how frequent each of these types comes up. Now, actually, this is sometimes useful because if you are not sure in your quick data if it includes noise that you don't want, like for example, maybe there is some other way to have pathway at the end. Maybe there's pathway style or something like that. And when we think we're only getting pathway and pathways, this is one way to confirm that that is what we're getting. However, more typically, you're probably going to be searching for what kind of things comes before or after this. So I think we need to increase the cluster size to 3. And let's see what we get right there. Right now the search term position is on the left as the default. If we push start, let's see what happens. Well, okay, so since the search term position is on the left, this is telling us all of the things that comes after it, which comes to the right. Again, could be interesting depending on our question, but for the moment I'm more interested in what comes before it, so I'm going to put the search term on the right and try this again. Okay, that took a very long time to load, so I sped up the video there. Unsurprisingly, we see KB signaling pathway at the top. However, let's look at what these metrics mean. We have frequency and we have range. So frequency is the total amount of times it appears in the corpus, but I am generally more interested in range when I look at these kind of things. Range means the number of different articles that it appears in. So for example, the catenin signaling pathway is very frequent, but it only appears in 3 different papers. So it may not be as important or as widespread as, for example, the WNT signaling pathways, which has a lower overall frequency but a higher range. So I'm more likely to sort by range when I do these. And I find that to be more interesting. Now, I sorted by range, but the data still looks a little strange, so I have to restart this search again. But since it took a long time last time, let me speed things up a little bit by increasing the minimum range. I'm not very interested if something only occurs in a single article, and maybe we can also increase the minimum frequency as well. Okay, so again, that took longer than I might expect the software to take. That troubles me a little bit, but anyway, we have the and of and these kind of very common words now, kind of unsurprisingly at the top. But downstream signaling pathways, very frequent. IFN signaling pathways, very frequent. TLR. If we want to learn more about these and try to understand what they're talking about, we can click on these. But in short, sorting by range tells us that yes, the KB signaling pathway is talked about by many authors. It seems to be talked about roughly the same amount, by roughly the same amount of authors as the WNT, the TLR, and the IFN. If we want to see who is and how they are talking about these things, we can click on any of these. I'll click on the IFN signaling pathway, and it takes me now back to the quick search, and it's basically done an automatic search for me by the IFN signaling pathway. And I can see who is talking about it here from the file. If I want to go into more detail, like say, if one of these seems particularly interesting to me, I can double click on that, and now it takes me to the article, and I can read the context where it came from. So that's a very basic introduction to the cluster tab. The Ngram tab is very similar. They can do almost the same thing that the others do, but you might find that one is more convenient than the other for you.